Good evening, all. So this is going to be the 7th episode, I believe, of Mathghamhain Morsels. And for this, I'm going to show you guys how to make a really simple chicken curry. But it's not going to be any less delicious for that fact. So this will, of course, be simple as sexy chicken curry. To start off, I have a chicken breast, which I butchered off the bird myself, as well as both of the wings. I have some white and I have some dark. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit this with some curry powder on the back end of the chicken breast. Leave the skin unmolested, but just get some of that seasoning on this side. And I'll also hit the chicken wings with a little bit of this as well. Again, only on one side, in order to prevent any spices burning while I sear it off, which I'm going to do here in a moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sear the skin side, so on the wings that's going to be the opposite side that is currently face up, and the breast, it's obvious which one's going to be the skin side for the breast. So I will join you guys in the kitchen to show you how I begin that, and then I'm going to roast the chicken for a little bit, let it get all the way done before I continue on with the rest of the dish. So I'll join you guys back in my kitchen. See you in a moment. Okay, now then, here we are in my kitchen. So, I have a cast iron skillet that is preheated, already ready to go. I'm just going to use a little bit of oil, or cooking fat, in this case, just because it's nice and convenient. I'm just going to use some spray oil. All it is some canola, some soy oil, and then just a little something in order to be repellent. Hit the pan with that. So I have a nice thin layer just to keep everything from sticking. First in are my two wings. And then that beautiful chicken breast that I just seasoned up. And I'm going to give those a few moments, skin side down in my cast iron, before I move this all into the oven, which is currently at 400 degrees, to roast up and get some nice color on the skin, which is already starting now, but it'll just deepen that coloration as well as cook the chicken all the way. So at this point, just like everything else, while it's searing, you don't really want to be picking it up, turning it around, checking it constantly. You just want to let it sit there. Let the heat and a little bit of oil and all that delicious protein do their thing as they're sitting in the pan. You will notice that I didn't salt any of this. That's just because I'm going to be using some chicken broth later on in the recipe. And if I need to, I can salt it later. Normally I don't need any salt in this. But that's, again, a personal taste thing. You can also go a lot heavier on the curry powder than I did, and you'll see later on how I mix up the rest of the curry. You can again add in more curry powder. For the curry powder that I'm using, it's just a simple McCormick's curry powder. You can decide how hot you want your curry, either by adding more curry powder or by using different spicier curries. So you can use a Goan curry, you can use Madras curry, you can use a whole bunch of different types of curry powders. I like this one. It's a good balance of sweet and heat and all the other flavors. So this smells like it's time for me to throw it in the oven. Normally I just toss this in without any sort of peak, but just because I'm doing this for you guys, what I'm going to do is flip this for a moment. It's getting a light golden color, not much color yet. Most of the color is going to come when it's in the oven. But now is a good time to transition this to the 400-degree oven. I'm just going to let that roast for a while. So when I come back, I'll be taking that out and slicing it up while I get everything else ready. So I'll see you guys in a few moments again. Okay, so for this curry, it's, like I said, a really simple recipe. It is the chicken, which I've already started prepping, onion, some more curry powder, some flour to help thicken, a bit of broth just to make sure you get the right consistency and give it a good bit of volume, stretch it out a bit more. And then it's just served over rice. You can add in other things as well if you want. So mushrooms go really well in it. You can add in some spinach or anything like that. If you want to add some greens. Just have fun. Try different things. Experiment with different flavors. You can also do beef curry this way. You can do shrimp curry. Anything that you want, just toss it in and give it a go. See if it works. So, I'm just slicing, or currently I'm peeling the onion of the paper. But once I finish with this, I'm going to continue slicing. I just tipped and tailed it, meaning I chopped off the top of it and the bottom of it. Once that's done, I'll be slicing this up a bit. You can decide how fine you want the onion. If you don't like chunks of onion, you can go really fine. If you like big rustic cuts, you can go for big rustic cuts. I'm going to go for probably thin slices. But I've done it with diced, I've done it with fine, I've done it with thick. Doesn't matter. However you like it most. I'm just feeling in the mood for thin slices. Okay, almost done with this paper. Because you definitely don't want to get any onion paper in your dish. It is not pleasant. So make sure that you get all of it off. That looks like all of it. Scrape that off to the side. Okay, so now I'm going to have it. And then, like I said, I'm going for thin slices, so I'm just going to start working through. I don't have the best knife skills in the world, so I'm not going to really give you advice on how to properly cut anything. It's however works for you. So if you can do the very chefy curling your fingers properly so it tracks along your knuckles, go for it. My hands go a bit retarded when I try, and I can't quite get it down. Though, I haven't really tried all that hard for it yet. So I just end up slicing a bit slow, but it gets the job done. And that's really the important thing. You just want to make sure that you get everything done how you like it. If you don't want to chop it at all and you have a mandolin slicer this works beautifully. If you have a food processor and you just want to use the slicing blade, go for it. If you were one of the people that bought a slap chop the shit out of this onion. It works. You can get it however you want, as long as it is not just a whole onion thrown in, you're good. So, this is almost done. And be very careful with where you place your hands, because you don't want to drive through your hand as you're slicing anything. That will not be fun. There we go. So there's my onions sliced up. Like I said, you can throw any other sort of vegetable matter or fungus in that you want. You can try different meats, but I'm just keeping it very simple with some onion. And then let's start with the wings, because the bone's still in them. That won't be fun, chomping into them and getting bone, but I like the nice little bits of crispy skin. So just get in there with your fingers. You can use your knife when you need to. That's just the joint. Give it a taste while you're going. So I want to peel off all that beautiful crispy skin. Get as much of the meat as I can off each wing. I'm just going to make a pile of it over here next to my onion. So what I did was I flipped this as I was cooking it. And just set a grill weight on top to press the surface down since it started to curl a little bit. Kept going until it had a nice golden brown skin, and it was done all the way through. As I've said before, the actual cook times can vary depending on your oven and a number of other factors, but it's mainly if your oven's telling a realistic temperature, if it is able to hold its temperature right, doesn't fluctuate too much. Mine's not the best oven, but it does its job. So, if you're tasting the chicken as you do this, it should just have a very, very light curry flavor right now. Because all we did was we dusted it a little bit before we threw it in a pan and then tossed it into the oven. And that delicious crispy skin bits, they're going to be amazing. So, try to preserve those if you can. Or if you don't want to use them in the actual curry, peel it off, eat it. It's delicious. And this is the chicken breast, that's skin side. I flipped it over, let it get a bit of color on the other side as well. And this, just going to do a very, very rough chop. It's very hot because this came out of the oven and I gave it a little bit of a rest and then immediately started cutting it. And again, nice and crispy skin. So for the breast meat, what I do is I chop it into vaguely bite-sized, might be large bite-sized, but vaguely bite-sized pieces. Because you don't want to have to go in with a knife when you're eating curry. You just want to be able to stab the nice, beautiful bits of meat and chomp into them. That's all the slicing prep work that I need. That's all the chopping that I need done. So I'll join you back in the kitchen and we'll continue on with this dish. Okay, welcome back. So this pan is currently cool, and I just threw in a good bit of butter, probably about a tablespoon, maybe. You just want enough butter that when you start tossing in the onions to go translucent, that there's enough cooking fat to help them along that process. So just going to let the butter melt down as my pan comes up to temperature. This is not one of my cast irons, as you can probably tell. That's because making curry, this gets a bit messy. And this pan is a lot easier to clean than my cast irons. So the butter's melted down. I can start throwing in the onion. And this is okay. Just throw in the onion. This you don't really want to caramelize. You just want to get in and get them so that it starts turning translucent. I'm using a sweet onion, also known as a Vidalia, or some people call them Mayan onions. There's a couple different names for them, but sweet onion and Vidalia are probably the two most common. And I currently just have that on a medium hob. At this point, all you're doing is letting the pan come up to temperature and giving the onion a bit of time to soften, go a little translucent, and just get a little bit of flavor. Not much, just the tiniest bit from the butter and a bit of heat underneath. They won't go sweet like this. You aren't going for jammy onions, which I will show you in another video how to make really amazing jammy onions. These are just meant to go translucent, not caramelized, not sear it all, just get a little clear. And as I said, this is going to end up being chicken curry, of course. So I do have some jasmine rice currently going in my rice cooker. Check the type of rice that you're using. All of them have a slightly different ratio of rice to water. The rice that I'm using works best at about 1 cup of rice to 1.5 cups of water. Comes out exactly how I like it. If you use basmati rice, it'll be a little bit different. If you use an instant rice, like a Uncle Ben minute rice, different ratio as well. So be mindful of what type of rice you're using, how much water you want to put. So this is just starting to go translucent. I'm going to give it a moment longer, just so that all the little bits on it can go translucent. And then I'm going to be throwing in the chicken and starting to add the curry powder and flour and chicken broth bit by bit. For the chicken broth, depends on how much time and effort you want to put in. If you've already made chicken broth and reserved it, you can do that. If you weren't using skin-on chicken breast, you can boil the chicken to get it most of the way, or pretty much all the way done. And then you can just use the water that you boiled the chicken in. Or you can go out and buy a chicken broth. Since I didn't boil my chicken, and I don't have any of my chicken broth that I make every so often still floating around, I just have a good Swanson chicken broth that I tend to use. I either use it or collagen, kitchen basic, a bunch of different types of broth. Find one that you like the flavor of, use it. So, that looks about right. In with the chicken. Chicken has just been lightly curried and roasted. Nothing really special thus far. Give it a bit of a swish around the pan. Let it sit for a couple moments. The smells in here are absolutely amazing. So, at this point, I start adding curry powder. This is entirely to taste. As you make this a couple times, you'll figure out about how much you like. I normally add a bit, stir it around, see if that's the golden color that I like at this point, or if I need more. This I'll need a little bit more than I just added. And this is just, like I said, the curry powder at the moment. I'm also going to be adding a bit of flour in once to get the right color on the curry that I'm adding, and I have enough color. So this is just a bit of all-purpose flour. This is what's going to help thicken up the curry as it goes. So add a bit of a sprinkling. Stir around. Let it get coating everything. With that flour on everything. Then it's cooked down a little bit so you don't get a raw flour taste, which is rather off-putting. Is what's going to allow you to add in some chicken broth. And if you start using chicken broth and you run out of the chicken broth and it isn't the right texture, not the right consistency, not the right color, or anything like that, you need to thin it out a little bit more. You can use water. If you don't have anything else, you can use water. You can use coconut milk if you want it creamier tasting. That goes really well with this. You can use that. There's a really nice, creamy, kind of sweet mellowness. One way that some members in my family finish off their curry is they'll top it with some toasted shaved coconut. You'll see how I serve it up once I finish this, which will strike most of you kind of odd. But if you haven't tried the way that I'm going to plate this up before, trust me, give it a go. You might like it. I know I have a hard time eating this curry any other way because it's how I've always had it since I was little. And it is absolutely delicious. But more on that when we get to it. At this point, all we're doing is we're looking at consistency. We're looking at consistency. We want it not really thin, not really thick. It's going fairly well. I'm coat my spatula, but I want more fluid than I currently have. This is not enough of that delicious curry, almost gravy-like. Liquid that I want to be able to coat my rice when I throw this on top of. Just get the fantastic flavor of everything. So I just added a little bit more. Keep everything moving. Let it sit for a couple moments. After you incorporate everything to let it bubble. Give it another stir. Let it sit, let it bubble. And you're keeping an eye on how much liquid you have, how quickly it comes back up to the bubble. Is it a slow bubble? Is it a fast bubble? And keep an eye on your spatula as you're stirring, or your wooden spoon, however you're stirring it. Keep an eye on whatever you're using, because that's also going to help you judge the consistency. Just like everything else that I show you guys how to make, you absolutely want to give this a taste. And you're not only checking the flavor as you give it a taste, but how it feels in your mouth. Sometimes, if you didn't add enough liquid, or you added too much curry powder or too much flour, you can get a somewhat grainy taste, so you add a little bit more fluid. Mix it round. See if that's a good taste. If it's just not thickening up and you aren't getting the right consistency, you add some more flour. Mix it round, and you just go back and forth between some flour, some broth, some flour, some broth. If it's not getting thick enough, more flour. If it's too thick, more broth. If it's just a little bit one way and a little bit the other, you just keep on adding until you get it exactly how you want. And if you want to stretch this more than I'm trying to stretch it, then all you do, you add more broth, you add more flour, it gives more body to the dish, but keeps the same consistency. Because if you just add broth, then it's going to end up really watery. Won't be that nice. Won't glom onto the rice, won't glom onto the chicken and onto the onion or mushrooms if you add them in. But if you have the right consistency, this is looking really good right now. So I'm going to take it off the heat, or rather just turn off the heat. And I'm going to just manage this a little bit longer until my rice is done. But I shouldn't need to doctor it anymore. You can see the consistency of it. It's coating the little spatula that I'm using. As I mix it round, that's the texture I like. That's the consistency I like. So with this, I'll join you guys once my rice finishes up, and I'll show you the finished dish and how I like to serve this up. See you guys in a moment. And we're back. So, as I said, the way that I like serving it up is a little bit weird, because this is the curry over top rice. That's perfectly normal. But I love crumbled bacon on my curry. I don't know why. I don't know where it started. I just know that I've always eaten this type of curry with bacon crumbled over it. And because I've always done it, and it's always delicious, I'm not gonna stop. I'm going to continue using crumbled bacon. But like I said, you can top it up in a number of different ways. You can use some toasted coconut. Goes beautifully on this. You can eat it with a bit of chutney or something like that. You can get a pita or naan, and rather than having it with rice, have it with the pita or naan. Absolutely delicious. But for me, you can't beat it. Just served up on rice with crumbled bacon. And that is a simple, sexy chicken curry. So again, I'm going to leave you off with what is becoming my mainstay. Explore food. Try different things. If you've only used one type of salt, try different salts. Even something as simple as that can widen your flavor profile. If you've only had beef, chicken, and pork, get lamb. Get fish. Find a weird meat or weird cut of meat that you've never had. Try it. Try different flavors together. Mix things. Experiment. See, well, what would happen if I took this dish and do that? Explore. Figure out what you like. Life is much more interesting when you have more options. Have a good one, all.